Right folks, so I'm in a position where I need to start cutting down timber in order that I can actually make the walls. Now there is a massive consideration here, and it's to do with the planning regulations. Now because this structure, because this outbuilding will be within 2 metres of a boundary wall, the maximum height of the structure, and this is obviously UK, the maximum height is 2.5 metres from the ground. Now the thing is, there is a little bit of a slope in the garden, so the question arises as to, is it 2.5 metres from that side or that side? And because it's on a slope, it will be 2.5 metres from the ground at the highest point adjacent to the property. So it's going to be this corner here basically. So the maximum height of this structure needs to be no more than 2.5 metres. So obviously this side here, it's going to be slightly more by about another 150 mil. Now the thing is, I'm actually going to put a single pitch roof on it. So in other words, you know, it's the roof from front to back will be at a slight slope like that, back to front. So what I'm going to do here now is just to sort of work out a few measurements as to how, you know, how high I need to build these walls. So I'm just going to sort of, you know, take some measurements, sketch it out on a bit of paper, and then work out my cuts.
Hello folks, 21st Century Caveman here. Hope everybody's well, hope everybody's happy, and welcome back to another episode in the series How to Make a Man Cave, She Shed, Cabin in the Woods, Workshop, whatever label you attach to it, the process will be the same. So I've taken some measurements, worked out the height of the walls, the pitch of the roof, that sort of thing, and here I am clamping some timber together in order that I can start cutting down the timbers. Now I'm using 2x3s. In fact, that's the imperial measurement. The actual sizes are 75 by 47 millimeters, and the timber is C18 structural timber, which has been treated. So this timber is very strong and is perfect for you know, fabricating something like this. So I'm using the Evolution circular saw, 185mm diameter blade. Now this circular saw, I've had it for about a couple of years, one of the best investments I've made. It just cuts through these, no problem at all, and it can also cut, you know, metal, plastic, a wide variety of materials. Now you'll see that I'm measuring out 600mm spaces or intervals, which will be used for fixing the uprights, and that coincides nicely with the actual board I'll be using. I'll be using 8x4s OSB boards, 18mm thick, so the metric sizes are 2440 by 1220, so the uprights at 600mm intervals. That works out very nicely indeed. Incidentally, the reason I'm using C18 structural timber is because I was actually looking for some C16, but as it turned out, the C18 timber was actually cheaper than the C16 and it is better quality. Now these Turbogold screws which I'm using, they're 150mm long, 6 inches, got them from Screwfix, where I get most of my stuff from. I've used these extensively in the past, and the main benefits of these are the fact that they are very, very sharp indeed, and they don't need a pilot hole. Now you will note that I'm putting 2 screws in either ends of these timbers, and unlike nails or cheaper screws, they don't actually split the wood. They're absolutely fantastic, and obviously they do cost a bit more, but to my mind they represent excellent value for money, and the additional cost is well worth it because you don't have any problems with the screws. You know, they never the heads never wear out when you actually screw them in using an impact driver, and I can honestly say I've never had a problem with them. As you can see here, the impact driver is making very light work indeed of screwing these large screws into the timbers, and the battery lasts for ages. I've got 2 of these, it came with a kit, and absolutely valuable. Now I did actually start by fixing the perimeter first, you know, the head of the footer and the 2 sides, and then started to put the uprights in. You know, there's no right or wrong way of doing this, it's just personal preference really. So we're now on the noggins. Once again, 2 large screws in each end, and where it's not possible to actually screw into the end, as I'm doing here, I actually put them in on a diagonal. Now you will notice on some YouTube videos that quite a few people don't bother putting noggins on here, they just rely on the uprights. I could have done that, but I had enough timber, and I just decided to invest the extra time in fixing these noggins in order to ensure that the frame was extra rigid basically. Now, in a previous video or two, there have been suggestions by viewers that I ought to be staggering these noggins as opposed to actually fixing them in sequence like this, and the fact is it doesn't make any difference at all. It's purely personal preference, and it doesn't actually have any impact on the strength of the structure. Here you will see that I've actually fixed another header. So we have a double thickness of header, and the reason I've actually decided to do this is because of the weight of the roof. Now it is a single pitch roof, and it's not as important as if, for example, I had a double pitch roof, because there'd be much more weight there, and the actual way which the double pitch roof fits onto the headers would mean that you would certainly need this additional strength. As I say, it's not so important with a single pitch roof, but you know, I've got the timber there, and for the short amount of extra time it took, you know, it's well worth the effort. So first one done then, and that's looking quite nice and tidy. 3 more to go. So basically we're just repeating the same process as we've already used, and that works very effectively indeed. So in this clip here, look, you'll see that I'm actually fixing the uprights to the header first, and then, you know, fixing the footer in, which is the horizontal timber at the other end of the picture. You know, it doesn't matter which way around you do it, it's purely personal preference, but it is actually quicker to do it this way. Because I haven't actually done anything on this scale before, it's a little bit trial and error really, just having a go, working out which works best for you. But yeah, you know, this works fine, and this would be my preferred way of doing it if I had to do it again in the future. So as we can see, once again, a couple of screws fixing the header and the footer to the uprights, and they secure them very well indeed, and those screws really do pull the timbers very tightly together. So once again we're back on the noggins, and these really do stiffen up the frame considerably. As I say, for the small amount of extra time it takes, it's worth doing to my mind. They may not be absolutely essential, but you know, I would certainly prefer to do it that way, just to give me a little bit more peace of mind really. So here we can see where I can't actually screw in the noggin from the other side, so I'm just actually fixing it on the diagonal, one screw at the top, one at the bottom, just as strong as fixing these things on a staggered basis. You know, doesn't have any negative impact on the integrity of the structure. and also this is actually a very easy way of doing it, and it's certainly a lot easier than trying to wang, hammer in bloody great big nails into these noggins and secure them. As you can see, all of the timbers, as I previously mentioned, got 2 screws in each timber, and they hold them together very tight indeed. Absolutely solid. And as you can see, it also gives a very nice, neat finish.
Right, so this is the front elevation, this is the front of the building, and we can see the basic outline now. So I wanted a slightly larger door on this so I can get stuff in and out without having to shuffle around. So the actual width of the framework is 800 millimeters, so I'm going to fit a door in that section there. I've taken it 600 mil from the edge there, another 600, 600, 600, and then a little bit in the middle. I can't remember what the size is, but it's irrelevant to a large extent. But what you can see, look, where the door's going to be, I've actually doubled up the uprights on either side just to give it some extra strength. So there will be some windows in this here, but I just want to get the walls up now, just to sort of screw them into place, and then things like windows and that sort of thing, I can actually have a look at those a little bit later. But because I'm only doing half a day today, I want to get these walls up.
So as you can see, all of the walls have now actually been manufactured. So it's just a case of actually assembling them on the deck. Now this is something you can do on your own, but quite frankly, it's very important to try and get somebody else to help you, because these things are quite heavy. They're a hell of a job trying to fix them yourself. And if you've got an extra pair of hands, it just makes sense to do it rather than stressing about trying to get everything in position, securing things onto the deck, etc. Just makes sense to have somebody to help you. Now I'm actually securing the footers, which is the bottom horizontal timbers. I'm actually using these 150mm coach screws basically. They come with a bit, which is quite helpful, and these are very good at securing the timbers. And I must say that once you get to a stage whereby you're fitting these walls, it really is a very satisfying feeling indeed, actually seeing your hard work coming together and actually seeing the outline. You can get a much better visual impression of what you've been designing and dreaming up. But yeah, very satisfying feeling indeed. So here we're just positioning the walls basically. We'll then just tack them in place once we've got them nice and upright and plumb, and then we'll just go back and fix them in multiple positions. Now I'm actually 6'4" tall, which is just over 1.9 meters, and you can see that I will actually have enough headroom here, even at the lowest point. Now these 150mm sort of coach screws, I also purchased those from Screwfix. Now these aren't cheap, and I could have used a longer version of the turbo screws, but I thought these would actually have more purchase and be more effective and stronger. So here we go, another wall going up, and we're getting there. Things are starting to take shape, and yeah, it's a good feeling. So now I'm just going to brace the walls as a temporary measure, just to make sure that when I get them nice and plumb, they stay that way. Because we'll be fixing the front elevation very shortly, and obviously it's just a case of trying to help myself really. I would also point out incidentally that I'm not a joiner, a qualified joiner. I'm a DIY chap, and a lot of this stuff really, you know, if you do a little bit of research, is pretty much common sense. So things are starting to look really good now. We're in the process of fitting the last wall. So this is the front elevation, the front of the building, and yeah, it's actually starting to look like a proper outbuilding now, isn't it? Pardon me. So once again, just tacking it into place, and once we've got it exactly how we want it, then we can start securing it more thoroughly. So putting some of these big coach screws, I believe I used 2, possibly 3 per section, and I fitted them either side of the uprights as well, because I thought that would probably be the weakest point. So therefore I wanted the most, want it to be as secure as possible. I just thought that might be an ideal place to put a couple of screws, one either side of the upright and then one in the middle.
So the wall's now up. Everything's as plumb as I can get it, bearing in mind that I'm not a joiner. As we can see, there's a slight differential in the height, so there's going to be a slope from front to back, which will hopefully be sufficient to enable the water to drain off. So I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm going to cover it up with a tarp now, because this is just a half day for me and Tina. So I'm meeting a mate of mine tonight for a pint, and I think I deserve it. So there we go, look, there's the basic shape. So when I come back to this tomorrow, we'll start having a look at the roof, and also tomorrow is when the other sheets of 18mm OSB board will be delivered. So that's what I'm actually going to sheathe this in.